Hoopball podcast listeners, are you a fantasy expert and want to write or podcast for Hoopball? Do you have aspirations of covering a team? Are you a master of sales and want to earn some cash on the phones? Well, we've got good news. Hoopball's recruiting. If you think you have what it takes, hit us up at Hoopball Fantasy on Twitter or by emailing teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com. Again, that's at Hoopball Fantasy on Twitter or emailing teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com.
The following is a Hoopball presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the Hoopball DFS Today podcast. Today is Wednesday, August 5th. I'm your host, Mike Apatra, joined by none other than Santino Cacone, the notorious Hartford 860 man. We've been hit by some severe weather today, Santino. So we got hit by that tropical storm, pretty heavy gusts of wind. We got trees down. And Santino, if I'm not mistaken, was without power at his home. So he is mobile. He is recording from a different studio, also known as his in-laws' house. So he's getting it done, though. He's here. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right. And yeah, I lost power pretty much all day. A couple trees knocked down our power line, like straight from our house, right in the front. Next door neighbor, a big tree in the back fell and knocked down all of their cars. One of them looks totaled. There's a giant truck that is kind of blocking the other cars, so I think that one's messed up, but the other cars might be safe. You can't really tell. There's so much. That tree was massive, and you can't see underneath it too much. But yeah, we got hit by this storm, and I'm as you said, I'm doing the mobile version right now. Got to try and get through some stuff. Give me a little backtrack, but I think we're good to go. I think we're going to do good tonight.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're a man on a mission right now. You got it done either way. When there's a will, there's a way. So obviously, the slate means something to you. You traveled to talk about it. So I'm pumped about it. I mean, this is kind of a wonky slate. You were just saying it, before we got on air, and it's always crazy when Jeff Green has the same amount of points as Russell Westbrook or James Harden. So. It's a little bit of a weird night. Some things were we did not. I don't think anybody in the world expected. I think it was the largest spread of the season for that Bucks Nets game. Look how that turned out. So
I don't know if you were listening last to today's or last night's podcast. I can't even get the words out. I'm so flustered. But I kept saying it was going to be a barn burner of a game. I haphazardly was joking, and at some point I was like, oh, maybe I don't know if they'll play their starters in my head. It came out as they actually won this game, and that's I'm at a loss for words. Especially because Giannis, Middleton, Bledsoe, everybody was out there, sans Brook Lopez, in that first quarter and a half, and they were still getting beat. So that's the thing that really stuck out to me. Before they turned into their bench unit, they were getting beat by a G League squad at best.
Yeah, the Bucks turned into a bunch of pumpkins. It happened, and DraftKings at least made the decision fairly easy for us, where we avoided a lot of those guys because of their price tags. A few guys undervalued. You jumped on Musa, and I got to give you credit for that one. That's a great call. And I think Justin Anderson. You talked about him, I think, on last night's show too, and another guy that hit their value because they're min salary.
Don't forget my boy. He didn't have a great game, but I just keep touting him.
I know we got.
I'll let it go.
You and Cheers is real, but we got a new slate to talk to. Before we jump into the slate, though, just a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Manscaped. If you guys haven't heard, and I'm assuming you have, go check out Manscaped. Try the Lawnmower 3.0. It is one of the best trimmers I've ever had, and it allows you to have that two separate trimmers. And they also have a fantastic package where it comes with the, conditioner, all the good stuff, boxers, travel bag, everything you need. And if you use promo code HoopBall20, you get 20% off your entire order plus free shipping. So I know there's probably at least a few products out there that could do some of the gentlemen that listen some benefit. And, listen, I think Santino says it best. Your significant others will appreciate it, and it's a luxury. You'll appreciate that after it's all said and done. And once you have it, you can't go back. So use promo code HoopBall20, HOOPBALL20 to get that 20% off and free shipping. But let's jump right into this, brother. We have 6 games to talk about, and it's been glorious. Every single day in the bubble, we're getting 6 or 7 games. It doesn't get any better than that. Perfect size slates, not too many, not too little exposure. And then we get basketball from, the afternoon all the way through the night. So it's just juicy. We're going to start it off, though. Memphis Grizzlies facing off against Utah. At the moment, the over-under is 225. Utah's being favored by 4.5, which is a little surprising considering my boy, tragic news. It just took 2 of my favorite players, 2 of my favorite bigs, both of the league's best young defenders right out of the equation after Jonathan Isaac tears his ACL. It comes back that Jaren Jackson Jr. tore his meniscus. So he is out for the remainder of the bubble. Hopefully, meniscus we see to be, sometimes a 6-week injury, sometimes it's, 2 to 2.5 months. Generally, obviously, it's not as devastating as an ACL tear, but I think the big news to keep out for Jaren Jackson Jr. is if he's getting it repaired or if he's getting it removed, right, Santino? I know those are 2 different injuries. One you can generally come back from a little faster, and the other one, if you get it, how is it? If you come back a little faster, if you get it removed, but it generally shortens like the length of your career, it could damage the knee long term. Whereas if you get it repaired, it takes a little bit longer for recovery time, but has less complications down the road. I think I got that right.
Yeah. Removing it is, you can play shortly, but it comes with a bigger injury risk and generally a shorter career. But repairing it is going to be a longer term thing, though it's gives you more longevity and the chance for re-aggravation is less. But everybody's different, so we'll see what happens.
I think Dwyane Wade was a notable person who had it removed, right? And that kind of led to his knee sorenesses and game management towards the end of his career. Westbrook, I think he had it removed as well. So we'll see down the road. But nonetheless,
Westbrook is just a different beast when it comes to injuries. So I can't. The bar for Westbrook and returning from injuries is just. It should be in a league of its own. I don't understand this guy. He has surgery and then 2 days later he's back in the lineup.
Yeah, it's true. He is a beast.
He's
his own guy, and that's why everyone talks about the athleticism, but who knows when it actually goes, if it ever goes. But nonetheless, Westbrook's not on this slate.
No, he's not.
We already dealt with him. Tonight as we're recording this the night before on Tuesday night. We got the Memphis Grizzlies. We got Utah. I said the total. I said the spread. Major news, Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously out. Like I said, Tyus Jones, Justice Winslow both out. Everybody else should be healthy for Memphis going forward. And as far as Utah, it's the same injuries as Bogdanovich, and that is it. So why don't we break it down, man? We'll start with Memphis. Why don't you give me a couple guys that you have on your radar?
All right. There's 3 guys that I have on my radar. 2 of them for sure. One of them, if I'm searching in that, if at the end of my roster I only have this amount of money left, that's what I'll look his way. But the first guy comes to mind is going to be the chalk play of the night, and that's Brandon Clark at 4,600. It's hard to say no to a guy who should see 30 minutes or so. I know the matchup against Utah, he might go against Royce O'Neal, who's a lot smaller than him, but Clark can guard people on the perimeter as well, and he can. I don't see them not playing him a good amount, especially without Jaren Jackson Jr. there. I'll slide right into the starting lineup. But this team lost against 3 teams that are right behind them. They lost to the Blazers, they lost to the Spurs, and then they lost to the Pelicans. So they desperately need this win. They just lost their second highest usage guy. So I will go straight to Brandon Clark there. And I'm sure he's going to be one of the most chalk players of the night at that price tag.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for him not to. Yeah. I think it's just everybody's going to people gravitate towards Brandon Clark in that price tag regardless.
Yeah.
And then now the fact that you coupled with the fact he should start, like you said, there's an off chance he doesn't if they decide to go with a guard rotation. They could probably do that with Utah. We'll have to wait and see. We should have that news, obviously, plenty of time in advance, knowing it's the first game of the night. That's the good thing. But I imagine that. Yeah, I think cash games he's almost a lock, and then GPPs. I guess there's always the pivot. It makes perfect sense.
They could always go smaller, throw in Melton, put Kyle Anderson at the 4, Josh Jackson at the 4. But I mean, Clark's their best player. Gorgie Deng might play a little bit, but I don't. In this matchup, it's different. Maybe in another matchup, I like him more. The second guy I'm going to talk about is the guy that not the guy that I really like, but a guy that if the money works, or that's the amount of money I have left at the end of my lineup, I'll look his way, and that's Dillon Brooks. When I say that, people are probably going, ugh, this guy he hasn't shot the ball good these 3 bubble games, under 40% each time. He's taken a little under 8 threes per game in those 3 games. He's taken 16, 20, and 13 shots. He's gotten 15, 16 points each time. There's going to be more usage to go around without Jaren Jackson. Someone needs to step up, and he is in a prime position to be their number 2 field goal attempt shot taker. So he's a guy that if I have 5,200, that's not a bad price. And like I said, if I'm around the 5,000 range at the last spot or two, I'll look his way. But I'm not going to go out of my way to target him. He's just a lot of times your money and you have people are stuck there in that price range.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes shooting guard can be a pain to fill. I don't imagine he draws a lot of ownership either. I mean. For the most part, I think I'm with you. I'm on Brandon Clark. You mentioned the other guy I have some interest in, and that's going to be Kyle Anderson. And you touched on it. Yeah, I think he is going to spend some time at the 4. Generally, in the first few games that we've seen with the Grizzlies in the bubble so far, we've seen Kyle Anderson play 18, 25, and 29 minutes. So the past 2 games, playing mid-20s. He's going to get that few extra minutes. He doesn't need a ton more. If he ends up getting 4, 5, 6 more minutes. Now we're talking Kyle Anderson playing, almost 30 minutes, and he's averaging just under a point per minute a game against Utah this season. In 2 games, he's averaging about 16 DK points in 18 minutes. So, looking at a guy that's only 4,300 and some good exposure in this game, plays 30 minutes, we could be looking at an average about 26, 25 DK points, maybe even a little bit upside of more. But I think we have a stable floor in there as well. So. I like both Clark. I like Anderson. You can play him as a pivot. I don't know if I'd play them together. It's just a little bit of there's a little ugliness, I think, if you play both those guys together. But yeah. I know there's got to be. I think we need to touch on also Moran and AK. He's going up every game, but the minutes they stay up there with him. The guy's averaging about 38, 39 minutes so far during the bubble. And do you have any interest in that price tag?
Yeah, before you cut me off and didn't let me get to John Moran, I mean, I saving the best for last there. But apparently in Micah Patria world, we don't do that here. Also, before I get to why I'm on board 150% with John Morant, I was listening to the podcast the other day with you and Breton, and you mentioned the big board bets. I smell a big board bet with Kyle Anderson and Dillon Brooks. I don't know if you're in on that one. I know Brooks costs 900 more, but it smells like a big board bet to me.
Oh,
are you that confident?
I mean, $900 is a great.
It's a good deal.
Let's do point per dollar, and I'll do that.
It's a big deal.
Better point per dollar play.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
I'll do that one.
We'll throw that in there, and we'll talk off air. What happens? We'll bring it up next time.
Yeah. Let me just. I'm gonna, be the Micah Patria way, cut you off again real fast, and just say that if me and Santino have a bet going, odds are it will be a good one. It will be something that's probably pretty either embarrassing, or I'm gonna end up probably taking him out to dinner or something crazy and buying him drinks, and Santino can drink like a fish, and he turns into a slosh, and I got to drag him around. It's rough when we go out, but continue now. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No problem, buddy. But yeah, John Moran, another guy that is going to be in pretty much all my lineups, especially if I only play a few. He's got to be there. So we were talking about how Jaren Jackson Jr., their second biggest usage guy, their second highest scorer, is not playing. That only gives more usage to John Morant, who has been insane since this bubble started. I also mentioned they lost the 3 games. All 3 games to 3 teams that were right on their heels for that 9-8 seed. But John Morant, since this bubble restarted, They said they wanted to play him a lot more minutes than he was playing in the regular season, which was about 31 on average. He has been averaging 39 minutes in the 3 bubble games. 39 minutes and 20 plus shot attempts on average in all 3 games. Give me that all day, especially when your second leading scorer is going out. His usage is only going to go up, and it's already at a really safe floor. I know he only hit 5 of 21 shots last game in a good matchup, but he did have Ball and Holiday on him as well. But yeah, Ja Morant seems like a lock to me to play at 8,000.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with the usage. It's only going to go up. I mean, after that last game, they need to win. They need to win bad, and you got to imagine he's going to take every possible opportunity, turn it into that overtime mode, and just do what he could do. He's that type of player. I don't think anyone's going to argue with him taking the most amount of shots times 3. I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah. He's gonna have a ton of shot attempts, and the usage is going to be there. Is the matchup the greatest? I mean, it's Utah. We're looking at probably a little bit of a slower pace, but I can get behind it. I mean, just with some of the point guard options that we have, there's a few that we could pivot to. But with everybody going to Clark, I doubt too many people are going to overexpose themselves to this first game with all those other ones on. So I could see Ja Morant actually going a little bit under the radar. Price increase, first game of the day, already playing Brandon Clark. Yeah, I can see people going away from him a little bit.
There is one guy in that range that I would gravitate more to, and we'll get to it later. But at 8,000, it seems like a very safe play for a guy averaging 39 minutes and 20 plus shots, and his running mate, second leading scorer, just went out.
All right, man. Well, what about Utah? I mean, we're gonna have some exposure over here. Utah's been playing fairly well. Looking like, I don't know. Have you seen any chemistry issues so far? I mean, they've been they lost to LA, they lost to OKC. Those are tough games though, so I'm not gonna look at it any differently. But we heard the rumblings of Gobert and Mitchell saying, yeah, we're good, but then behind the scenes, they're not really good. Have you noticed anything different about their play style? I know that Bogdanovich out obviously impacts the rotation, but these guys, they got to get ready for playoffs. They got to be ready for 5 more games now, and one hates the other. So I don't know. I think that we haven't seen too many big games out of anybody but Conley since we were in the bubble. Mitchell held his own in that first one, but that's it.
Now, this last game, Mitchell dropped 33 against the Lakers, but Conley is, speaking of Conley, he's been a guy that I've liked since we came back to this bubble. His price tag has been pretty similar. The first game he was 6,200, which wasn't bad, and then that last game against LA, 5,500. LA is not that good against point guards right now, so I really like that matchup. But he's back to 5,800 against Memphis. I think he's a good play as well. He took 17 shots last game, 9 3-pointers. He dropped 24 and 8. He's looking his best that he has all year. He's looking closer to the Mike Conley that we expected, and that price tag, that's not a bad price tag. And then the guy right behind him, playing both guard positions, Jordan Clarkson, is a guy you can look at it in this matchup as well. He's only 4,700, so he dropped 200. He didn't have a great game last game. But he took 13 shots again. He only made 2. So he's going to probably have low ownership, but he's averaging 15 shot attempts per game, or 16 shot attempts per game since the bubble resumed. So he's not a bad play at that price tag. And I guess I'll just throw in all 3 of them before you go. And Donovan Mitchell finally broke out of his slump. I just mentioned it. He dropped 33. He looked better. This is a very good matchup for him. And at 7,500, that's a good price. But he's just they are looking a little off. He has shot more shots each game. He has hit it at a better clip, but they're looking a little off as a team. 7,500 is not bad, but if I have to pay an extra 5 to get Ja Morant and I have that money, I like that.
All right, man. You basically hit the nail on all the guys I was looking at. It's the guards. I'm looking for these guys to just take advantage of the lackadaisical backcourt that they've had all season. Ja Morant, as good as he is on offense and as highly we tout his usage and everything else, he's not really a great defender just yet. And that's understandably. He's a smaller guy, doesn't have a lot of weight to him, rookie guard. So I'm with it. Clarkson, shot attempts usage, 4,700, great price tag. Give me some of that. I'm all for it. I do like Conley too. It's always going against his former team, and while it's not at either team's home stadium, there's got to be something in there, maybe a little bit. It's just an added bonus. 5,800 is a great price tag. He looks like he's healthy. That's the most important thing, I think. And then Mitchell at 75. Don't mind it whatsoever. Great price tag. As long as he's under 8K, I think he's viable and in play for me.
Nice.
That's it,
Yeah,
brother. We'll keep it moving.
Pretty much where I'm at. All right, let's do it.
Next game, Philadelphia versus Washington. 231.5 game total. Philly being favored by 10.5. As far as injury news is concerned, Mike Scott's out. Glenn Robinson Jr. is currently being listed as doubtful. And Kyle O'Quinn, he should be back. He missed a COVID test. I know that. So that's why he sat out that last game. So I'm assuming he'll be back. But keep your eye on the Kyle O'Quinn news. And then as far as Washington,
definitely. That's big news, guys.
Dude, Kyle O'Quinn puts up those random 30-point games when you're never expecting it, and then Joel Embiid, Mike Scott, and Al Horford will all miss. It'll be Kyle O'Quinn chalk night, and he puts up 7.25 DK points.
That's slate-shaking news right there. Kyle O'Quinn. Kyle O'Quinn watch.
And then the same injury news that we've known about for Washington, nothing really new. Same starting lineup and same everything going on over there. So we'll start with the Sixers over here. The team that is favored, Joel Embiid's been on a burner. I'm assuming you were going to start with him.
Yeah, at 10,400 against Thomas Bryant. Yeah, this is a smash spot for him. He took 17 shots. He played 31 minutes last game. He came out of the game for a few seconds, but they just escaped on a win, and they lost that first game against. I'm going to just call them the TJ Warrens. So they need another win. They could easily climb up to the 5 seed, but they're going to need to play a little bit better. And it starts with Joel Embiid getting back on track in a smash shot spot against Washington at 10,400. If you're going to pay up for someone, that's the guy I like to pay up for, like the high prices.
I can't blame you. Just knowing the matchup, what this guy can do in a point per minute standpoint, he's a fantastic play. I think a lot of people after watching today's Nets game aren't going to be as scared off of blowouts and possible blowout scenarios because, anytime we look at the two teams that probably shouldn't be in the bubble, it's Washington and it's Brooklyn, and those are the only two teams in my mind that I ever fear this game could get out of hand pretty quickly with. So, and Embiid being the one guy that if they could limit his minutes on this team, that they will. So I do like him. If I'm playing him, I'm probably going to have some decent guys on the other side of the ball and just hope that the game stays close. I think it's mostly going to be a game script kind of scenario if I'm playing Joel Embiid. I'm not just going to run him and nobody else on the other side.
Yeah. But sticking with the Sixers, if I don't want to pay that price for Embiid, there are two people that I like in this matchup, and we'll start with Tobias Harris, a guy that you probably didn't expect me to say second. Tobias Harris, this matchup is good for all three guys that I want to mention, but especially good for him. So the Wizards are the bottom 5 in 3-point percentage against, and Tobias Harris is their best shooter. Maybe Forkmaz, but he's not really in the rotation. So we'll stick with people that are actually gonna have a relevance here. But Tobias Harris is their best perimeter shooter. He's gonna play more 3, and that might be Troy Brown trying to guard him, or maybe Rui when he slides to the 4. But they're also top or bottom 8 in giving up offensive rebounds, something that Tobias Harris is pretty good at. Two things that help him in this matchup. And at 8,600 in another smash spot. When you're facing Washington, everybody's in a smash spot, but this is a fairly good price tag for him if you want to get some exposure that's not Embiid at 10-4.
The thing is, I can't get behind the price tag. That's the only thing. I think 8,600 is just a little too rich for me. I love the matchup. I agree with everything you said. I think he does have the upside for like a 50-point game here easily. I think all that's built in there. But again, if I'm paying over 8K for anybody on this team, I'm running it back. I think there's only one player I would even look at as like a standalone Sixer play. And
Simmons?
no, I don't. I think it would be like a guy like Shake Milton. And it's not like it's not a guy I love. The thing is when the Sixers are healthy, all three of them, Embiid, Simmons, and Harris, they all have tremendous upside. They all have tons of usage. They can all hit that 50-point mark that we're looking for. But it's basically a toss-up, and they all kind of cut into each other's value. I think Embiid obviously has the highest ceiling and highest floor because he commands the most usage. But when it comes to Tobias Harris, we're just looking at his past games. He hasn't hit value really more than once. He hit it against Indiana. That one game, but he's been priced so high at 8,600 that first game against against Indiana he got the 45, and then 42 against San Antonio. That's just getting to value, barely. I mean, we're really looking for 40 from a guy, and that's just 5x at 8K. So we're looking for a little bit more. It could be in this matchup again, but I just don't know. I think that we're going to get to a couple other forwards later on that, for a little bit of cheaper, that can have that 40-point upside for like 2 or 3K less. That's the only reason. I love the spot.
The last guy was one I just said. If you want to look at him, Ben Simmons, and I'll throw out why. Brett Brown continues to say the most important thing that is to be done before the playoffs start is that he wants Ben Simmons to be comfortable at his new position. He just said it again. Ben Simmons hasn't played great. He has 11 fouls in the last 2 games. But if Brett Brown is serious about this and he wants Ben Simmons to continue to get this, even if this game gets out of hand, he's probably going to let Ben Simmons get more comfort zone, get more comfort level. Ben Simmons wants to shoot a 3. This is the team to shoot it against. I mentioned that they're bad at giving up offensive rebounds as well. So there is some possibility here for Ben Simmons, but again, that you mentioned the 8,700 price tag, that's a little high for me. But if you want to buy into the narrative that they want Simmons to just be comfortable, he's gonna have one of these big games soon.
I just don't. I can't stand that the assists are down. 5 and 4 assists in the 2 games.
Yeah, it's annoying.
That bothers me. And the only other thing that I don't worry about the fouls. Just look at who he went against. He went against DeMar DeRozan, known for drawing tons of fouls. In the game before that, he went through the god TJ Warren, power forward. So it's like, what are you gonna do? It's just stand there and take them. So the fouls, those are gonna come again. He's playing in the new position. And those guys, they just had great games against them, so that thing happens. But I think just the not distributing as much with Shake Milton in the starting lineup, that really cuts into his value. So I want to see him more like that 84 range. Tobias Harris, I'd like to see him at like 79, 8, and then that's when I'm really going to start considering. I haven't really played them too much yet.
Yeah, I haven't really played them either. This is just a good matchup for their skill sets.
Fantastic. I think this would be a good matchup for our skill sets. On the court. We'd probably be able to. I give them 17.5 DK points at mid salary. Leave me open a couple of times, like 15 times. I'll hit 3 of them. But let's keep going, man. Let's move on to Washington. You touched on a lot of big names over there in Philly. Like I said, if I'm playing any of the big names, I got to have some action on the other side, and hope this game stays close enough where I get 4 quarters out of everybody I'm looking at. So why don't you take us through a couple of the guys you're looking at for Washington?
So the leading scorer on this team is Thomas Bryant since we started the rebubble, and Troy Brown Jr. has really taken over the playmaker role. Second, the latter half of which we saw coming. Maybe to a lesser extent, but we saw that. But if I'm going to start, the guy that I'm really looking at in this matchup is Rui Hachimura at 5,700. Thomas Bryant is going head-to-head against Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid can get him into foul trouble very early, and will need someone else to start scoring there. Hachimura has been here. We thought he was going to be the leading shot taker. He took 15, 6, and 12 shots the last 3 games. I expect that to bump up a little bit. And at 5,700, that's not a bad price tag. So that's where I would be looking if I wanted some exposure to this game. That's the first guy I'd be looking at.
I don't mind Hachimura. He played fairly well against some of these 2 teams faced off earlier. Played a ton of minutes. I can't remember if the game went to overtime or not, but he played more than 40 minutes, so I'm guessing it did. But he put up 39 DK points, 11 for 18 shooting. Didn't do anything really as far as steals and blocks. I think he did have 2 steals, but it's a solid matchup. He's going to get to Ben Simmons, the matchup, and if the fouls do continue, that's only going to benefit him a little bit more. And he's 5,700. We talked about it on the last show, I think, where once it's not up to that 7.5K mark, we can actually consider it. some of the pricing has been so egregious and off. DraftKings, I give them some credit. They've been pricing up everybody, but other sites like FanDuel, they've been really dropping the ball on some of these pricing. Like today, the Nets guys, DraftKings made it impossible to play any of them, and then FanDuel was basically inviting us with all of them at mid-salary starting. So,
right.
I'm with you. I'd say Hachimura is probably one of my I would say my one or my two option on this team.
Yeah, if I had, I don't. After Rui, I don't have a big second guy that I'm targeting in this game specifically. I do like the Wizards, and I think they have some value here, but I'm not huge on everybody after that. If I had to look, I would go Troy Brown at 55. As I mentioned, he has turned into the premier playmaker on this team. He's getting more usage. He has back-to-back games of 8 assists and 7+ rebounds. So that's where I'd be looking at. It's not a great matchup for him, so I'm not in love with it. But he is providing value at that cheap price.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few other guys like you touched on it. Troy Brown, he's got the upside. He averages about a point per minute against his team, but how much upside do you have going against Philly's defense? That's where I run into it. It's he's not getting an easy matchup. Josh Richardson doesn't play offense, so it's like reverse James Harden. James Harden doesn't play defense because he plays too much offense. Josh Richardson shoots like 4 times a game, so he has all day to play defense, and that's all he thinks about. So I'm not going to be gravitating towards him. If I land on him, I wouldn't mind it. The only other guy I have a little interest in, and it's a GPP flyer. That's it. Not a cash game reliable guy, but is Mo Wagner. I always look towards the backup center when you're going against Joel Embiid. A lot of people get into foul trouble, and I was talking about Drew Eubanks the other day, and he came out there and put up a decent enough game for us, because when Joel Embiid's on the court, you need to throw big bodies at him. And there's also the added benefit where if this game happens to just get ran off the court very fast, he's the guy that would end up benefiting, because Thomas Bryant, I'm sure they would want to, guy that had conditioning issues, stress fracture issues, I think early on in the season, not a guy that you're going to just run in garbage time. So if he ends up playing, 20 to 25 minutes, I can see him hitting value at 3,900. He played 19 against Indiana last game and got us, almost 21 points, with only scoring 5 actual points, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 5 boards, 2 assists. He can get it done multiple ways. So I guess, a little GPP action. Can you get behind that?
I mean, I'm not going to actively target him. I guess if I'm down in the 4,000 range and I need someone, I'll look his way. But really, I'll pass on that.
All right, man. maybe we got another board bet if we find someone that's 4,000. Can't be someone chalky though. Yeah, no chalk. I like this. I like the sneaky GPPs. Mo Wagner's probably gonna be like 0.6% owned. That's what I'm hoping at least. But we'll keep it moving. Next game, Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the LA Lakers. Santino's favorite basketball team.
You skipped a game, brother.
Ooh. Oh, Denver, San Antonio. Wow.
Yeah, there's no spread. That's probably why.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's true. Well, Denver, San Antonio. I guess we'll talk about this one. I had no spread available, as Santino said, so keep your eye on that. And generally, if there's no spread, it's because we're waiting on some injury news, and that would be Jamal Murray.
Yep.
Questionable with a hamstring injury. He's been sitting out. Wouldn't be shocked to see him sit another game. Will Barton will still be out. Gary Harris is still out as well. And then as far as San Antonio is concerned, everybody looks to be good to go except for Marco Bellinelli and Bryn Forbes. Actually, no, Bellinelli's probable. We got an update. We have a probable Bellinelli, so there goes 8 minutes out of the rotation. Bellinelli will be in, but Bryn Forbes still dealing with the quad injury, ruled out, and obviously no LaMarcus Aldridge or Trey Lyles. So why don't you run through the scenario? Jamal Murray, let's, I guess, say that he's going to play, but I think we can both assume and rightfully assume that even if he does play, dealing with a hamstring injury, he won't see a full complement of minutes.
Yeah. So if Jamal Murray plays, it downgrades everybody for me a little bit. We'll probably see 20 or so minutes. But even then, it takes a little bit of Michael Porter Jr.'s usage out. It takes a little bit of Jokic's ball handling out. It kind of downgrades a lot of people to me in this matchup. He's not a fast-paced one, really, and it's going to be more of a slugfest, I think, with the way that the Spurs are coming out and trying to get that 8th seed. But say Jamal Murray doesn't play, that puts Michael Porter Jr. back into play, coming off a career high. I know his price tag went from mid-salary to 4,500, or it was like mid salary, then 4,500 last game, and now it's at 62. 30 points is, or if at 62 you want him to get at least 30, 35 at the minimum. That's hard, but he is their number one option right now. Without Murray, without Harris, without Will Barton, he's getting the minutes and on the wing and on the guard rotation. He is the guy. So I wouldn't mind looking there, even with the price increase. And the way that the Spurs are playing, they're smaller. Sorry to cut you off. So he's going to see a lot of like Lonnie Walker or someone that's not close to his physical size. So he has the matchup advantage all day.
No, I was just going to say I love Michael Porter Jr. He's somebody that I've been touting and loving ever since he finally got healthy, and he's the future. He's the future of this team. I think one day that this team's looking to have Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., ball at the 4, and Jokic at the center as their starting lineup, and then fill in whoever at the 2, somebody that can hopefully play defense. But I'm with you. I think that if those guys are out, if Murray's out, we can look at Porter Jr. If Murray's in, probably not going to look at him. I'd still assume that he's going to get at least high 20 to low 30s minutes, even if Murray's in there. I think his role is solidified. That's not going anywhere. It's the usage that would change up a little bit. But I mean, if Murray plays, I think it might actually help Jokic up a little bit, because Jokic has been not necessarily like struggling, I think, with Murray out. But that last game against OKC where he exploded for a triple-double. Prior to that, though, not really getting it done for fantasy. He had 2 40-point games, pretty much 40-point average prior to that last explosion against OKC. But is he somebody that you'd have an eye on if Murray's in, or do you need Murray to be out? What's your take on Jokic?
Yeah, so Jokic needed overtime to get those 39 minutes. He really picked it up in the second half, especially to finish off with that triple-double. I kind of like Jokic, but for 97, you're right. I'd rather have Murray in there. He's running a lot more point. I mean, he runs a lot of point, but he's initiating the offense way more than usual, which already is a lot. And I want him to get more in the block and get a little more comfortable, get some easier buckets to get there with Murray available. So I'd rather probably have Murray in there for him, and it's the opposite for Michael Porter Jr. for me. But either way, he's in play. But there are some other people in that price range that have a safer floor at the moment.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer Embiid over him, even just the matchup, $700 more. If I'm going to spend up on that, just give me the guy that I think is guaranteed 50. Even if he plays like 25 minutes, I'll get 50.
Yeah.
All right, man. Anybody else kind of standing out for you for Denver?
Not standing out, but another guy in that 5K range, Paul Millsap. He had 35 minutes. He's playing roughly 30 minutes a game, and he's putting up nearly 25, 30 fantasy points. I think this is a solid matchup for him, but the more I talk about it, I don't fully want him with Aldridge out of there. But he's another guy who, with Jamal Murray out, someone needs to get more volume as well. Or if Murray plays, I don't want him.
I'm just curious on how they would adjust with if DeMar DeRozan is playing the 4 against them. Obviously, they could take advantage of that in offense, but Millsap's a veteran. He doesn't want to move a lot. DeMar's going to make him move. He's going to pull him out of the paint. He's going to do everything he could to just tire this guy out and wear him down in the first 6-7 minutes of the game. So
it was similar, though, the last game. DeMar DeRozan and Gallinari are clearly different, but Gallinari's more of a perimeter player as well, and he's still got 35 minutes. So it seems like they want to play Millsap now that he's healthy.
Yeah, and I'm with you. If that's the case, Millsap's been a pretty solid point per minute guy over his career, obviously, as he aged, and now that he's not a main focal point of a team that's gone down, but he still has that same upside where he's a multiple category kind of guy. He rebounds, points, blocks, steals, assists. He can do a little bit of everything, which gives him plenty of more opportunity to get those extra big games here and there. So I can co-sign a little bit on Millsap. So I think for me, I'm looking at Porter Jr. in the right scenario. I don't mind a little bit of Millsap. Probably not going to be playing too much Jokic, although could be the pivot, I guess, if everyone else is going to gravitate towards Embiid, which makes sense. But I'm not really going to go down to anybody else like Grant or Torrey Craig or any of those other guys. Monte Morris, I think he's just going to continue to be chalk. Been getting about point per minute since he entered that starting lineup, but I'll probably pass. I think there's better options.
Yeah, I'm okay on Morris.
All right, man. San Antonio, the land of 17 guards where everybody plays every single one of them every single night. So
Exactly.
why don't you break down who you have your eye on for San Antonio for us?
Um, so yeah, I got my eye on two guys here. First is DeMar DeRozan at 8,300. He finally broke out of his shell and said, let me try and score in that third game. They did lose. That was the only game they lost, but they almost had Philly. They almost came back and beat him. DeMar scored 30 points. It's a pretty decent matchup for him. If I wish he was a little in the 7.5 K range, but I think this is a pretty good solid matchup for him, and they need someone to continue to take the bull by the horns here in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, for DeMar DeRozan, these two teams, they met up earlier in the season. So any stats that you look up from that game, take with a grain of salt. DeMar didn't play in it. So, you'll look and you'll see Derek White had a pretty solid game and, solid matchup, easily could again. But that was also without the guy that gravitates 20 shots towards himself. So I don't take any of that news too serious. But I think DeMar DeRozan, 8,300. He's a great play. And I don't know if you noticed, but DraftKings changed him from a shooting guard and small forward to a small forward and power forward. So you can actually use DeMar DeRozan in the power forward spot now.
I kind of like him better as the shooting guard spot, but I don't mind it. I don't mind the difference. And after him, there's another guy I'm looking at, just one more guy. So Derek White is probably the guy that people are playing more because he has the hot hand. But I'm going in the other direction. I'm going Murray if I have to play one of those two guys. I think Murray definitely has the advantage over Monte Morris if Jamal Murray doesn't play. He's just more lankier. He's going to beat him off the dribble. He can get a shot over there, and he's a really good defender. I think he's going to get some deaths on Monte Morris. And if Jamal Murray does play, he's going to be limited as well. And I think Murray also has the advantage in that one just because he's limited. So that's where I would gravitate to Dejounte Murray. So far, it's been 2-0 White or 1-0 White with it or 1-0-1. I'll say because they pretty much tied that second game. I think this is the game that Murray gets the trade-off in.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think that they're both good options. I just always like playing Murray over White personally, just because Murray's rebounding upside. Again, I'm looking at guys that can get it done in other ways other than just scoring, where they're taking just about the same amount of shot attempts per game. Give me the guy that has the opportunity to get more steals and more rebounds, and that just gives me that higher upside and also a little bit of a safer floor. Same price tag, pretty much 16K, 159. I'm on board. I'm co-signing Murray over White. But I don't think I can go towards the Lonnie Walkers. I know you said that's kind of where you were cutting it off. I think Bellinelli's back. He's only going to take a couple minutes. Listen, I'm not saying he's going to ruin everyone's value and everything. But Lonnie Walker's a guy that's already been getting his minutes up and down a little bit, starting to get cut over the past few games. It went from 32 in the first one against Sacramento down to 25 against Memphis, 19 against Philly. So as guys come back into the rotation via Patty Mills, he came back into it. Now we're starting to get Bellinelli back into it. We're going to start to see a couple of minutes come away from these guys like Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, a couple of these younger guys that we're getting the minutes. So I'm good with just looking at those two guys, and it would only be one. I wouldn't be looking to get either both those guys in the same lineup.
Yeah, me too. And while the Spurs still have that chance to get into the playoffs, they're going to try and make the playoffs, as you mentioned. If they start losing ground in the last 3 games or so, it doesn't look like they're going to make it, then I could see Lonnie Walker getting 35 minutes, my guy Keldon Johnson getting 35 minutes, etc. But right now, while they have the chance to make the playoffs, I think they're just going to go for it, and whoever's playing with the hot hand is who Pop's going to go with. And another thing with the Spurs right before you go, always keep an eye out for who's getting scratched beforehand, because with Popovich, you never know. So just always keep that in mind.
Absolutely. So we're gonna take a quick break just to give another shout out to one of our presenting sponsors, MyBookie. You guys heard us say, plenty of games on tonight, 6 games to choose from. While all the spreads aren't out now, this is the best time to take advantage of some things. So go on mybookie.net, use the promo code HoopBall, HOOPBALL. Turn your dreams into reality, whether it's parlays, baseball, basketball, NFL's right around the corner. Plenty of things to play. Get some action, guys. You will thank us later. One of the new premium sites that we all play on now. We're here at Hoopball, and I suggest you guys at least check it out. At the very least, check it out and use that promo code Hoopball. Get some goodies while you're there. But we got 3 games left, man, and I already realized we've been kind of dragging our feet on this. Yeah. So we're gonna turn it up a little bit. We're gonna turn it into
to 11,
a different level. But the best part about it is now we shave off a few seconds talking about spreads and over-unders for the OKC Lakers game because there is none. So no spread, no total. That game starts at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Dennis Schroeder is still out. He left the bubble for the birth of his child. He will not be with the team. Looks like Mike Muscala is going to be out because he got busted up dealing with concussion-like symptoms. And Antonio Ferguson still out. Not that it has much to do with anything. Looks like the Thunder will keep continuing drafting bad wing players. And then the Lakers, Rajon Rondo still dealing with the broken thumb, and that seems to be the only news that we have to talk about. Wow, Anthony Davis not questionable.
Yeah. And Avery Bradley's out for obvious. But there's only a couple people I'm looking at. Who are we starting with? The Thunder. I thought the Lakers were on top. That's just my bias, I guess. Let's start with the Thunder. So first name that comes to mind, Chris Paul. I mentioned that if I didn't go Ja, there's someone else I like a little bit more at that same price range, 7,900. The Lakers, if you're going to attack them, it's at point guard right now. Chris Paul is extremely good. I think he's going to be lower owned, especially when you see the Lakers on board. He's averaging about 38 fantasy points the last 2 games. But I like this matchup for him. As Conley showed, as Lowry showed, you can attack the Lakers right now at the point guard position.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chris Paul is my top option on the team. One of the only options I'm really looking at. I know that with Schroeder out, Shea gets a big boost. A lot of people went there. I went there last game, but he was also $700 cheaper. And I just haven't seen the big Shea upside I've been looking for. With Chris Paul on the court, it really bites into a lot of his usage and now that this is actually important time and important usage, you got to, just assume that Chris Paul is going to take things into control when he has to. And, he's the best point guard probably for the past 15 years. But at the same time, he's going to take that last shot. He can set people up. He can make great plays, no doubt. But I just can't imagine that when, the game's on the line, Chris Paul is going to be like, all right, let me look for Shea.
And Chris Paul is actually, I'm fairly certain he's leading the league in fourth quarter points. So you just mentioned it. When the game's on the line, Chris Paul is playing out of his mind this year. He's always played out of his mind, but he's on a mission this year because he's gotten slighted the last couple of years, especially when he got hurt with the Rockets for a few times. But yeah, he's my top play on this team as well. He's 1,200 more than Shy, but I just like the matchup more. If I was going to try and squeeze in Shy and not go Paul, if the money didn't match up again, as I mentioned at the last couple spots, I had around 6,700. I'd go Shy, but I'm trying to get Paul in my lineup.
Yep, I'm with you, Paul. And I'm not really. I know that you probably have some other guys you might be interested. I'm not really interested in anybody else, to be honest.
Me neither.
It's a little tough. Adams just not going to get done. Tough matchup with all the bigs that they got to throw at him. Gallinari is going to have his hands full on defense, and it's going to be tough to get his shot over AD, not the regular defender. He can stretch out to the three-point line as well. That'll cause us some problems. And then Shea, 6,700, a little priced up. I think at that point I'd rather go Paul in the great matchup. So,
yeah, I'm just with Paul on this team.
Let's keep it moving then, brother. We've been on the same page outside of our little early bet. We got the next one, Lakers. This team stinks. We could just keep it moving. We don't need to talk about them.
Yeah. I'll throw it out there. Frank Vogel said that he will play his starters in both games of the back-to-back. This is the front end of the back-to-back. I know Frank Vogel says that. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I believe it. Maybe they play, but I don't see them playing 35 minutes in a back-to-back game when they have the number 1 seed locked up. And this was the concern that I had going into the bubble with Lakers players. I know I talked myself into AD the other game because I thought about it, and I was like, who's going to guard him on Utah because Gobert is already occupied, and that was big. But this game, if I'm going to gravitate towards someone, it would be AD over LeBron. I think LeBron is more in the let's get everybody on the same page. Let's get everybody ready. Let's get everybody engaged because we have a championship to go out there and win. And that's what he wants to do with these last couple of games. AD is the guy that he wants to be fed the most. So if someone's going to score out there, it's AD to me. And I like the matchup with it for AD out here.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm not really going to probably play either one of these guys, I don't think. I think the matchup's great. If I were to play one of them, it would be AD over LeBron. I touched on it after that game where he only took like 7 shot attempts or whatever it was. LeBron's going to make it a point to get his guy warmed up, make sure LeBron knows he could turn it on. He knows he's ready. He knows he's experienced in the playoffs. Davis, not a guy that's ever made it out of the first round. So, not a guy that's been there in those situations. Get him ready. Make sure he's warm, he's comfortable, and he's confident. And he has a few other players to do that with too. So I like what you alluded to. There's Dion Waiters there. There's J.R. Smith there now. They know that they're going to have to go forward without Rondo and without Avery Bradley, 2 focal points of their team and their rotation early on. So this team has to adjust, and they have to get the chemistry working. So I fully expect Captain King, God LeBron, to do that on his way with these last 4 or 5 games that he has.
Yeah. And I'm with you too. I mentioned Davis because it's a smash spot, but I just don't see them trotting these guys out for the next back-to-back set for 35 minutes a game. It's just hard to imagine. They already have the 1 seed locked up. And with that said, you mentioned one guy that if I'm going to go bargain hunting that I'll look at is Dion Waiters. If LeBron and AD aren't playing 35 minutes a game, Dion Waiters might get 25 to 30 minutes a game, and he's not afraid to shoot. He's played pretty well in the bubble. I can see a decent 25, 30-point upside with him, and at 3,500 salary, that's a good get if you're bargain bin hunting. I'll throw one more before you go. This guy I never mention in any of my lineups. I don't like him, but right now this is a fair price for him, especially with what I think the Lakers are going to try and do, and that's Kyle Kuzma at 4,300. If LeBron and AD sit, Kyle Kuzma could play 30 minutes. They might also sit him too and only play him 20, 25 minutes. But if he gets that 30 minutes, he is going to be their go-to guy for the most part. And at 43, he can easily return value on that.
All right, that's it. We're erasing the Dylan Brooks bet. It's Kyle Anderson versus Kyle Kuzma. Battle of the Kyles. Same price. Let's do it.
I don't like Kyle like that. I like him, but I don't know. It's only a matter of before game time. This is what I'm going to just keep an eye out for. If they decide that they're not going to play LeBron and AD 35, if they kind of do, like I said, Kyle Kuzma is their number 3 scorer, so they might not play him a full complement of minutes as well. But if they do and AD and LeBron sit, he's definitely going to get some shots. I still would rather have Dylan Brooks more than both of those guys.
I know. I get it. $900 more. Thought maybe fair price tags. No big deal. All right, we'll keep it. We'll keep it.
Kyle Kuzma would score more than Kyle Anderson. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, it's locked in. I know I could talk you into it.
I still like Kyle Kuzma more. I thought Dylan Brooks was a lock.
We grew up in the day and age where if you told your friend he wouldn't do something, they had to do it. So I knew that was coming. But
I was trying to get a free win there because Dylan Brooks is a lock.
The next game, man, 8:05. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, 8:05 Eastern Standard Time game. Toronto Raptors going against the Orlando Magic. We do have a game total for this one, 224.5. Toronto being favored by 5.5 points in this game. We already know the unfortunate news surrounding Orlando with Jonathan Isaac, but now added to that injury list is going to be Michael Carter-Williams. Left to, I believe it was today's game with a sore foot. I think it was his left foot. He's going to undergo an MRI, but odds are if you're undergoing an MRI, you will not be playing in the game. So that's going to open up some minutes. Michael Carter-Williams has been actually the first player off the bench for most of these games, so we'll have to take into account what that's going to do for the rest of the rotation. And then as far as Toronto, everybody is good to go except for Pat McCaw. Doesn't really have anything to do with it. He played himself pretty much out of the rotation, barring a lot of the injuries. So, actually, what am I looking at? Did he really play 43? Oh no, that was back in March. 43 minutes back in March, so it's still a lot of minutes. He only scored 17 points. So we're not looking at him for DFS anyway. But we'll start with
enough with Pat McCaw.
Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to speed things up. I'm spending time on Pat McCaw, but. We got some fair price tags for a lot of these guys over here in Toronto. Van Fleet getting a little bit of a boost. Same thing with Kyle Lowry. Siakam spent that price all season long. But anybody like kind of popping off the page for you in this matchup?
So this is one of the matchups that I am least targeting, and I'll tell you why. I will start with Toronto. This is the likely first-round matchup, the 2 versus 7 seed. I think the Magic get the 7 seed. I'm curious to see, and they played each other in the first round last year. Most of the time when we see this, teams don't go full bore at each other, knowing that they're going to be playing a series against each other, so they don't want to give everybody the looks that they're going to give them in the playoffs. So with that in mind, I'm kind of leaning towards not really playing many people, but if I had to play someone, I like the Fred VanVleet. He played 40 minutes in back-to-back games since the bubble started. 77 is a hefty price tag for him, and that gives me pause there. And I wish he was back near 7K, because then I would have been on him. But if I'm going to go someone on this team, I like that. The 40-minute upside, and knowing that if they don't go full bore and they rest Kyle Lowry a little bit, VanVleet gets more money to play with.
See, I'm more on the Kyle Lowry side of things. Just only $700 more, and now knowing that Michael Carter-Williams is going to be out of this game, there was a reason why Michael Carter-Williams was the first defender off the bench, and it's because they start DJ Augustin. He gets cooked. You can't leave DJ Augustin on the floor for too long. He gets absolutely torched on defense. And without that, defensive long stopper at point guard that they normally take off the bench, their backup options, Markelle Fultz, who is a capable defender, but he's also having his minutes limited. They're not ready to kind of throw him out there just yet. So I don't mind Kyle Lowry. This isn't a matchup I love necessarily from a team standpoint. Orlando slows games down, has been playing great defense all season long, so I wouldn't go playing a bunch of Toronto. But if you're looking for a decent one-off, I think Kyle Lowry, 8,400. I don't mind this matchup with Michael Carter-Williams out. That might be the only guy I'm really looking at on this team. So I don't know. Do you have anybody else that you're kind of
No, I'm not really. Like I said, I'm not really high on this matchup in general. And I'll just say it. I'm fading every single Orlando player again. I'm just not touching anybody on that lineup. And the reasoning is, again, this might be the first round matchup, but that's not even the reason. Steve Clifford, before the bubble started, said he wanted to get a 10, 11-man rotation. He's not joking. He's been playing more than 11 men. He played 13 men, and I believe 11 or 12 last game. I forget. But he's not joking. Nobody's played 30 minutes yet. About 25 is the tops. If you're not, that caps everybody's upside. So I'm just leaving this. I'm fading Orlando.
Yeah, I think just it's a tough defensive matchup on top of it. Limited minutes, tight. Not tight rotation. It's actually a wide rotation. I'm with you. I think.
It's unfortunate.
Vucevic's price tag's fair. Gordon's price tag's fair. All of their price tags are fair, but it's just a negative matchup, and without them, guarantee of them getting a full complement of minutes, it's really tough. We can look at a guy like maybe DJ Augustin if we do think that maybe he does for some of Michael Carter-Williams' minutes. They have to go somewhere, and they can't go to Fultz. So he's probably the one guy I'd have some consideration for because he's also pretty cheap, 4,400. Won't really burn you. The only other guy that they really play behind him that I could see getting, any sort of minutes would be that's it.
Oh.
I don't think that they have anybody else that can really play
I do have a small addendum. I forgot last night that the Vucevic, Gordon, and Fournier all hit 30 minutes for the first time in the bubble. They did get beat by the TJ Warrens, but they did reach 30 minutes. With that said, it changes my thinking slightly, but I also don't like this matchup, so I'm still going to fade them.
Yeah, I'm not on them any more than I was prior. I think Augustin's probably the only guy I really have a lot of consideration for. I do like Vucevic's price tag, just not the best matchup. I think 8,100 is fairly cheap for a guy like Vucevic for what he does on a consistent basis, but not without consistent minutes. Maybe we get to see 30 plus again, and we can change our tune in the next slate.
The one thing, that's what I was going to say. The one thing that is this would be good if I see around 30 minutes again for Vucevic or Aaron Gordon or Fournier. The following games in a better matchup, that's where I'll look for them, knowing that their minutes aren't limited. That changes things. But in this game, the Raptors are one of the best defensive teams in the league, so I'm okay.
All right, man. We'll keep it moving to the final game of the slate. It is the Brooklyn Nets facing off against the Boston Celtics. No total, no over-unders released for this game yet, and it's because we don't know what Brooklyn is actually doing. I say bench them. You just beat a championship caliber team with your G League team. Let them run. But no, in all reality, a lot of these guys were resting in that last one. We saw that today. But Karis LeVert, he sat out due to a bruised thigh. Is that rest or is it a bruised thigh? Keep an eye on it because maybe they just don't take any chances if he's hurt. I would expect Joe Harris and Jared Allen to be back. Those guys actually did sit for quote-unquote rest.
Well, Joe Harris, they said, quote, sore back. So I don't know if that was what that means. Probably rest without getting fined, but we'll see.
No, that means you're a veteran three-point shooter. Once you start getting, the sore back, that just means you're just a veteran. A bruised thigh doesn't scream veteran. My back sore. Yeah, I'm 29 years old. My back's sore all the time too. I know what that feels like. He's a veteran.
Yeah.
Jamal Crawford. Not the best story. Came back, played 6 minutes, got hurt his hamstring, did not return to the game. Wouldn't expect to see him again. Hopefully the Nets at least keep him on the roster. The dude's in the bubble. But hamstring injury is never the best thing for a guy that just came back and can only handle 6 minutes. So I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see him again. And then all the regular injuries that we already know about. And then as far as Boston's concerned, everybody's ripe and ready to go. Marcus Smart's probably still fouling people as we speak, even though the game's over. But I think he fouled out 6 minutes left in the third quarter or something like that in today's game. So he had his hand. He played 16 minutes, and he fouled out. So that's new for Marcus Smart. But why don't we start with Brooklyn? Let's break it down. I guess we can look at it though as though everybody's. Let's assume LeVert, Allen, and Joe Harris are all playing, and I think we know what to assume if a guy like LeVert sits, where that usage is primarily going to go.
Yeah, first guy I'm looking at, Jared Allen, 5,400. Any big, any center going against Boston is in a nice spot in that 5,400 for a guy who can grab 15 rebounds as he did last game that he played. That's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I'm all over it. Jared Allen, that kind of minutes. You saw what he did in the last one when he gets the opportunity. 38 minutes, 48 DK points. Sign me up again. 15 rebounds. He's just going to get it done. Yeah, even if he gets 26, 27 minutes, doesn't get to that 30-minute mark, at this price tag, he's not killing us. If he was 7K, it'd be a different story. 5,400, I have all the confidence. I have no issues playing him. He's going to be the chalk center player of the day. You can guarantee that. But, hopefully DraftKings just slips up and snoozes a little bit and keeps that O next to him. We'll have to wait and see. Who else, man? I know that, this is the late game hammer. Karis LeVert, 7,800. If he plays, do you have any interest in him?
Some interest. If he plays, he's going to be the usage guy on the team as normal. His shot hasn't been falling, and he's going to have his hands full with Marcus Smart. But he did take 25 shots the last game, so there's no shortage of usage there, and he scored 34 points. I do have some slight interest in him, so we'll see what happens. But I would probably I like Chris Paul for $100 more there. So LeVert, yes. I'd rather take the pivot and go with Chris Paul there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Paul's just in a slightly better matchup. Boston, they're as weak as they are on the interior. Their perimeter defense is fantastic. Just being able to throw different combinations of Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, all out there at different players. And you got to expect that LeVert's going to draw the best defender, being their number one option. It's going to be a tough day for him. But at 7,800, still a fair price tag. It's a guy that his usage is skyrocketing, and we would expect him to be probably around 8,400. That's why I see guys like Tobias Harris at 8,600. I'm like, I would take a guy like LeVert even in a bad matchup at 78. I would prefer LeVert over Tobias Harris, even though Tobias is in a good one and LeVert's in a bad one. That's just the way I look at it. I think there's more upside there. But that's it. I'm not playing Tyler Johnson at 6,100 or Garrett Temple at 58. Joe Harris I can get behind at 54. Decent option, but that, point per dollar. Look at Jared Allen, different position I get, but that's the guy I look at. That's the number one guy I'm looking at. I can't play your boy Chioza, and I think everybody else is just kind of a little bit priced up because of that one day that they had, exposure to the NBA court.
Yeah, they haven't changed the pricing back to with assuming LeVert, Allen, and Harris are there. So all those guys are out of play for me.
All right, man. We'll keep it moving to Boston now. Who are you looking at over here? I mean, this Nets team has been bleeding points, and I mean, hey, they're coming off a big win, so maybe they
They're
got some
coming off a
confidence.
big win. The Celtics coming off a big loss. They only now hold a half-game lead over the Heat for the 3-4 seed. So they need a win. And when they need a win, I'll go back to the well again if I have the cash, and that's Jason Tatum is my number one guy. There's nobody on this team that can guard him. He's going to have free reign to do whatever he wants in this matchup.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. I mean, I think all the wings are in play for me. I love all of them between Brown, Hayward, Tatum. Depending on the money, if you have the money to spend up on Tatum, go for it. I'm not going to blame you. But I think Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown are both in excellent spots as well. I don't like Smart's price tag at 6,500. A little bit too rich for my blood. Kemba Walker with the minutes limited, I can't do it.
Well, it's the second game of the back-to-back, so Kemba might not even play. We'll keep
That's
that
a
in
good
mind.
call. And if that's the case, I think Smart comes into play. What do you think?
Yeah, I have on this team. I think a lot of people are in play. Like you said, Tatum, Brown, Hayward, all in play. I'd lean Brown over Hayward because Brown's been on fire and he's 200 less, and he has shooting guard eligibility. So sometimes it's tough to find those shooting guards only. So I would lean Brown over Hayward. But yeah, if Kemba sits totally, that means Marcus Smart's going to get more game time at 6,500. That's not a bad price tag. I'd still rather pay up to get Brown 400 extra on there, and possibly Daniel Tice. He's been taking this center job but he's taken it by storm. He's played 32, 28, 26. He's the main guy there, and he has a good matchup against Jared Allen or the backups. So he's definitely in play for me as well. But 5,200 I've said a lot of guys that I like at 5,200 as well.
Yeah, I don't understand how you can play him over Jared Allen for $200 more. But
I wasn't comparing Allen. And
no.
That's
together. That's the way I just want to break it down. That's the way I generally view things. I price compare. Obviously, in tournaments and GPPs, you don't look at things in the same scenario. But general cash game situation, it's just tough at that kind of $200 difference and sheer floor and upside. I think his floor is probably Tice's upside in this kind of matchup. But yeah, I'm with you. It's really just the three guys at the top, and if we see Kemba out, Smart obviously gets a big bump up, but he's still pretty fairly priced at 6,500. You really need like 35 out of him to pay that back and be satisfied in the tournament. Won't be going to anybody on the bench. This team is just primarily focused to run through their three primary scoring options for when Walker's available, but that's it, man. That's all I have. I think that, interesting slate. We spent a good amount of time on it, more than usual, about an hour and 6 minutes right now. So this is where we'll spend a quick minute and just ask you guys to go give us a follow on Twitter. You can find me at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. You can find him at Santino Caccone, SantinoCaccone. Give us a follow if you have any questions leading up to the slate, maybe just general knowledge. And if you just want to say you guys are doing a great job, we appreciate it. And you can also do that if you just go on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you listen to this podcast. Give us a thumbs up, a rate and review, a 5-star. We check it. It makes us feel good. Lets our sponsors know that we're doing a good job, and it allows us to relay that information back to us. So we know what we can do better for you guys. We'll continue doing whatever it may be. We'll be back tomorrow. Keep breaking down these nice 5, 6, 7 game slates, and I believe Santino, you're gonna have the night off.
Yeah, I will be.
Any big plans for that night off?
No, just watching some more basketball.
That's it. Keeping it exciting. Switching it up.
Exactly.
That's what we've been, man. We've been b-ball vegetables. I was talking about it the other day. You just sit on your couch, turn into a vegetable, a potato, perhaps, and just enjoy it. Enjoy it because we missed it, man. But anything else you want to say before we take off?
No, I think we hit it all. We had a pretty long pod, a little bit longer pod, but I think we hit it all.
All right, guys, that's it. Thank you for listening. We will be back. Catch you guys later.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.